He had 75 cents in his pocket, no shoes on his feet, and a dream so big that even he was afraid to say it out loud. Nobody looked at him twice as he stood at that street corner, balancing a tray of small goods on his head, watching expensive cars drive past without so much as a glance in his direction. But what those people did not know was that the man they ignored was quietly studying every single one of them, taking mental notes, building a blueprint in his mind that would one day leave the entire neighborhood in absolute disbelief. This is not a fairy tale. This is the kind of story that happens when a person decides that their current situation is not their final destination. Samuel grew up in one of the most overlooked corners of a busy city. His mother worked double shifts cleaning offices, and his father had walked out before Samuel could form a solid memory of his face. From a very young age, Samuel understood what it meant to go to bed with an empty stomach. He understood what it meant to wear the same pair of worn-out shoes to school every day until the sole flapped open like a mouth gasping for air. His classmates laughed. His neighbors whispered. But Samuel kept showing up, kept sitting in the front row, kept absorbing every lesson like it was water, and he had been stranded in a desert. The turning point came when Samuel was just 19 years old. He lost the part-time job he depended on when the small shop he worked for suddenly closed down without warning. In a matter of days, he found himself on the street with no income, no savings, and a mother who was already stretched beyond her limits. Most young men in that position would have collapsed under the weight of it all. Samuel sat on a pavement, stared at the ground for a long time, and then made a decision that changed everything. He decided he was going to sell whatever he could, start from the very bottom, and refuse to make excuses for his circumstances. He started with packets of chewing gum, not because it was glamorous, but because it was the only thing he could afford to buy in bulk with the little money a neighbor had lent him out of pure kindness. Every morning before the sun came up, Samuel was already at his corner, arranging his small display with the kind of pride you would expect from someone running a luxury boutique. He smiled at every passerby. He learned people's names. He noticed what they liked and what they needed. While others saw a street vendor, Samuel saw a market research opportunity. He was learning consumer behavior in real time without spending a single day in a business school. Within 6 months, Samuel had saved enough to add new products to his corner. Within a year, he had convinced a local landlord to let him use a tiny space under a staircase as a proper stall. He painted it himself. He organized it meticulously. He woke up earlier than anyone else and stayed later than anyone was willing to. People started noticing. Customers started choosing his stall over bigger, more established stores nearby, simply because Samuel made every single person feel genuinely valued. He did not just sell products, he sold an experience, a feeling of being seen and respected. Studies in entrepreneurship consistently show that emotional connection between a business owner and their customers is one of the most powerful drivers of loyalty and word-of-mouth growth. Samuel had no formal training, but he understood this instinctively. He understood that people do not just buy products, they buy how a product makes them feel. Every interaction at his stall was warm, attentive, and personal. Customers began sending their friends, then their families, then their coworkers. The tiny stall under the staircase became the most talked-about stop on the entire street. 3 years after selling his first packet of gum on an open pavement, Samuel opened his first proper shop. It was small, but it was his. He had signed his name on a lease agreement with a hand that trembled not from fear, but from the weight of how far he had come. He stood inside that empty space before any shelves were installed and just breathed. He thought about all the mornings his stomach growled while he smiled at customers. He thought about the rainy days when he had no umbrella and simply got wet. He thought about every single person who had looked past him as though he did not exist, and he felt not anger, but gratitude, because every one of those moments had sharpened him. Mindset researchers and behavioral scientists have long documented the extraordinary difference that a growth-oriented perspective makes in the outcomes of people facing severe adversity. Those who view their challenges as temporary and instructional consistently outperform those who see their hardships as permanent and personal. Samuel had never read those studies, but he had lived them entirely. Every setback in his life had become a setup for the next level. Every door that closed sent him looking for a window, and when there was no window, he learned how to build one himself. Today, Samuel employs 14 people from the very neighborhood that once overlooked him. 3 of those employees are young people he personally mentored after seeing them sitting on the same pavement where his own journey began. He pays them fairly, trains them thoroughly, and tells them his story without embellishment on their first day of work. He tells them because he wants them to know that where you start has absolutely nothing to do with where you are going. He tells them because someone once lent him money for a pack of gum when they had no obligation to, and that single act of belief changed the entire direction of his life. What Samuel built was not just a business, he built proof. Proof that dignity is not given to you by your circumstances. Proof that consistency, when paired with genuine human connection and an unshakable sense of purpose, becomes one of the most powerful forces in the known world. The street corner where he once stood invisible is now just a few blocks from his shop, and sometimes on quiet evenings, he walks back to that spot and stands there for a moment. Not to remember the pain, but to remind himself of exactly how strong a person can become when they simply refuse to stop.